Thank you all for being here. I'm just going to say a quick word about the coalition, and then I'm going to sit down and let the fun begin. I'm a State Senator Cecil Thomas. I'm the representative of the 9th District, which encompasses the bulk of the city of Cincinnati, and a lot of portions outside of the city. Represents about 300,000 citizens. It makes up 3 House districts. 1 Senate district makes up 3 House districts. The 31st House district is Bridget Kelly, Representative Kelly. The 32nd House district is Representative Kathy Ingram, and the 33rd House district is Representative Cedric Benson. Those 3 make up my Senate district. We're here today representing the Coalition for Just Hamilton County. The Coalition for Just Hamilton County is a coalition of citizens who are concerned with bringing about a more just Hamilton County. Our mission is to promote restorative justice in Hamilton County. I'm one of the co-chairs of the coalition. The other co-chair is a young lady sitting at the table. Her name is Vanessa Enoch. And there are a number of organizations that are part of the coalition. The Cincinnati chapter, NAACP, is a part of it. Greater Cincinnati National Action Network, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance, the Nation of Islam, the Church Collaborative, Concerned Citizens for Justice, and representatives from the Cincinnati Black United Front. We do not endorse, we just listen, and we have people, we're about information. So with that, I'm going to ask Vanessa to come up, and I'm going to sit down. I am tired.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
My name is Dr. Vanessa Enoch, and I just want to say thank you all for being here. Thank you from the community who are here, and thank you also for the candidates. As a former candidate for U.S. Congress in Ohio's 8th District, I understand what a sacrifice it is for the candidates to run for office, so we appreciate your running. Thank you so much. So what we're doing tonight is the format will be as follows. We will separate candidates by race, and I mean your race that you're in, not the color of your skin. And with candidate speeches first from school board. How many school board members who are running for school board? If you're running for school board, can you come on up to the front here? We want to allow the school board members to come up first, and what's going to happen this evening is they're going to first introduce themselves. They'll get 3 minutes each to introduce themselves, and then after they introduce themselves, the panelists up here will be asking questions of each of the candidates. The school board candidates will go first, and then after the school board candidates, then we'll ask the judicial races to join them up front. For races other than the judicial races to join them up front. And then finally, we will have the judicial candidates come up. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to introduce themselves, and then we'll ask a few questions and either ask the candidates to answer the general question or even specific questions for a particular candidate. Questions tonight came from the community and from members of the Coalition for Just Hamilton County. Each candidate will have 1 to 2 minutes to respond to questions, depending on the question. If another candidate, we will let you know how many minutes each question will be timed. If another candidate is named during your response to a question, the person named will have 30 seconds to rebuttal whatever it is that you said about them. When your time is up, a buzzer will sound to let you know that your time is up. And again, let's go ahead and get started. So we have, let me give you a microphone. You guys can just share a microphone. And then when you introduce yourself, please let the audience know, because there's people from all over Hamilton County here tonight. Please let the audience know which area you're running in, which municipality, which neighborhoods make up the communities you're running in. And then you can go ahead and introduce yourself however you see fit. Thank you.
Good evening, and thanks for having us here tonight. I'm Marlena Brookfield, running for Cincinnati Public School Board. The public school district is the entire city of Cincinnati, parts of Greene Township, I think 9 or 10 precincts, one of which I live in, entire city of Cheviot, entire city of Silverton, Gulf Manor, Amberley Village, parts of Columbia Township, and a couple from Delhi. So it's a pretty big district. Oh, and parts of Fairfax, thank you. So I'm running because, one, I'm a West Sider. I went to Westwood Elementary and then West High. And a lot of our growth in the district, actually the majority of our growth and enrollment the past few years has been on the West Side. But we're not represented on the board currently. What I see is about 5 or 6 schools that have folks who have the time and luxury of being able to get to meetings and raise their flags and say, this is what we need, this is what we want. Meanwhile, I'm visiting school communities throughout the district, and I'm hearing from people directly affected, while our needs aren't getting addressed, we don't have the luxury of time to get to these meetings. When are our needs going to be heard? And that's exactly why I need, it's not want, need to be on the school board. Because too many of our children, too many of their families are not being heard by people at the decision-making table for CPS. And I forget if there was another question I was supposed to answer with that.
Just, you can answer all of them.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Good evening. Everybody hear me? Yes. Okay. My name is Steve Meggerly. I'm running for the school board as well. Just a little distinction. My friend here, Marlena, is running in the 4-year term. I am running in the 2-year term. So we are not running against each other, and if you shall wish, you could vote for both of us. So one, I want to say hello to Judge Hunter. You were wronged. I'm a Republican, and I'm not afraid to say that. So a couple reasons why I'm running for the school board. Number one, we have an educational crisis in our city. CPS ranks number 571 out of 608 on the state report card. We have too many failing schools. I have 3 tenets. Number one, every child is a gift from God, and I'm glad to be here in a house of worship where I can say that. Number 2, every child must have a chance to succeed. And number 3, education is the great equalizer. That's why I'm running. I wholeheartedly believe that we need transformational change in our school district. I'm running against 2 folks, one of which was appointed by the school board, and the other person who's been a lifelong teacher. I frankly do not believe that you can make transformational change in a failing school district when you've been a part of the system. Wholeheartedly. A couple things I would do if elected to the school board is, number 1, we need to expand vocational and technical education.
Yes.
Number 1. Right now, only 2% of CPS students are enrolled in vocational and technical, and it's all centered in Woodward. If you're a kid in the West End, you're a kid in Price Hill, you're a kid in Mount Washington, and you're not going to college for whatever reason, you should not have to ride a bus 2 hours one way to learn a vocation or a trade, because that's a great way to get out of poverty if you're not college bound for whatever reason. That's one reason why I'm running. Number two, if you look across the nation, and CPS does not publish this number, but only 5 to 7% of school teachers across the United States are African Americans. CPS does not publish this number. So we don't know how many actual African Americans there are, but I can tell you from talking to thousands of parents over this campaign, it's not enough. So here's something that I'm going to do to help solve that crisis. On day one, I'm going to propose that we partner with historically black colleges and universities to recruit those teachers, and if they sign a 5-year contract, not a 2-year contract like the TFA contract, we're going to give them a signing bonus, and we're also going to partner with the city to partner with them and use CDBG grants from HUD, and we're going to give them a down payment to move and be a member of this community. I look forward to answering your questions. I'm here because I think that this is an important place to be, and I'm excited to answer your questions, and thank you again for putting this forum on. Thank you.
I did neglect to tell the audience, everybody should have a sheet in front of them so that you can vote for the candidates who you preference. As Steve mentioned, you can vote for either of the candidates up there. If we can get the candidates just to say your name one more time, please, when we ask your first question. And we can go ahead and get started. Questions? Tell us your name, please.
Marlena Brookfield.
Marlena, how are you today? My name is Terrence Pickett. And my first question to you would be, what change do you believe need to be made to school curriculum?
There are a lot of changes that need to be made in our curriculum, one of which being it needs to be more diverse and inclusive. I remember at West High that we had a specific class in African American history as an elective. But why does it have to be an elective? Why is it not part of your regular history class? That's one thing that we need to change. For me personally, and this may not be everyone's topic, our health curriculum needs to have better language than the state standards for sex education. And 30 seconds, I think that's where I'll stop it.
I have one more question I want to ask you, and what do you believe is the best way to eliminate the school-to-prison pipeline?
That's a heavy question. Best way? You know, I don't have an answer for that. It's something that I want to hear from people. How can we do it? Because the fact of the matter is that the 3rd grade reading guarantee test, that is the test that they use to determine how many cells, how many beds in prisons. They start tracking the children at that age. And what does that say to the kids? That, okay, you failed reading, you're 8 years old, 8, 9 years old, we already know you're going to jail. And so you stop trying. That's wrong. So that's the first place we need to start.
I want to pose this question to you also. Thank you.
Me, Steve.
Yes.
Which one? The first question or second?
The one she just answered. What do you believe is the best way to eliminate the school-to-prison pipeline?
Number one, we need to get real that every kid, for one reason or not, is not going to go to college. We need to get real that in the 21st century, a one-size-fits-all education system is not going to work. So one thing that I would do is to make sure that we have expanded vocational and technical education and opportunities for kids to learn a trade and a skill. One thing that CPS is putting out in their strategic plan, in this order, was enrollment, enlistment, and employment. I think that that is short-sighted and it is wrong, because I think that if you teach a child who is not college-bound for whatever reason a skill and a trade that they can take on, to become entrepreneurial and own their own business. You know, I'm a lawyer by trade, and I know a lot of plumbers. I know a lot of electricians whose hourly rate is maybe double mine. You know, they're my savior when we need something fixed. So I think that in order to end the pipeline from, I'm done.
Thank you.
I have a question to address Marlene Brookfield. How are you this evening?
Doing well, thank you.
I was reading over a little bit of your bio. You have no experience in the Board of Elections. You yourself is just a parent of Cincinnati Public School system. How would you change the metric system that they're going to lower? What do you feel about that? The new scale of their grading system is going to change. Have you reviewed that?
That's actually the first I've heard of that. Within the district or the...
Within the district, they're going to lower 4 points for reading and math. How do you feel about that?
As I said, that is the first I've heard of it. I don't think we do our children any favors by lowering standards
Right.
when we know that they can reach them when they have the right supports in place. So that
Will you
that
oppose it?
takes me off, frankly.
Will you oppose that if you are elected?
Absolutely.
And the same question to you.
Absolutely, I would oppose that. We don't need to be watering down our educational standards, period. I think that we need to be focusing on raising up from being a failing school district to becoming the best urban school district in the nation. That's a goal of mine to have. And I think that by changing standards, it devalues the value of the education as a Cincinnati public school education in a public school system, and I would adamantly oppose that as a board member.
Thank you. I just have one more question for both of you. Marlena, am I pronouncing it correct?
Yes.
You say in your endorsement you're for the Ohio Student for Gun legislation. Explain that a little bit.
Sure. So it's a state group, student run, that their goal is to pass common sense gun laws such as universal background checks, red flag laws, things like that. And why they endorsed me is because my stance on firearms in schools, I don't believe in arming teachers. I believe that the only people who should have firearms in schools are licensed, trained, on-duty law enforcement officers.
Megan, the next question. Do you believe in arming our teachers in school?
Look, we've had two. That's a tough one. These are like tough questions. Usually it's like, what's your favorite color?
Yes or no? Yes or no answer.
In certain circumstances, yes, because I think that making our schools a gun-free zone has opened it up for people to come in, knowing that there may not be a school resource officer there to protect the children. Yes.
Thank you. And can we ask the audience to respect our candidates, please? No booing. And then also, let me say this.
Can I expound on that answer?
Sure.
Okay. So, look, as a lawyer, number one, we all have a Second Amendment right to possess a firearm. That was something that the Founding Fathers thought was very important. Okay? So I am not for limiting the rights of citizens of this country to possess a firearm. And right now they're teaching in our schools that they're teaching this in the schools when the kids are having, the training with regard to an active shooter. They're teaching the kids to throw stuff at the shooter. That's being taught in the schools, okay? And so I think that I would much rather have a teacher armed than our last line of defense is kids throwing books at a shooter in a classroom.
Thank you. And I just want to let the audience know we're going to ask a couple more questions from the panelists, and then we will have the audience ask a couple of questions. We'll only take 3 questions, actually, from the audience. And then we're going to move on and have unaffiliated candidates or candidates who are here who will just be introducing themselves after this race. But go ahead. The next question, I have for Marlena. Why are you running for school board?
I'll stand. I feel so much more like it's an intimate conversation when I'm sitting. But school board to me, so I have a lot of interest and a lot of passions in a lot of different areas. But what wraps them all together is education. You can't pull one thread without it changing the warp of the whole tapestry. And CPS specifically, because I am a product of Cincinnati Public Schools, but I figure if I want a better future, I do it by investing in the ones who will be that future, and that's our children.
Thank you. Steve, same question. Why are you running for school board?
So, I'm running because, number one, I believe that every child should have a chance to succeed. I have been able to live a very blessed life, and I've been privileged in the opportunities that I've had. And I wish that every child had the same opportunities that I may have had by the luck and grace of God. So, I'm running because we need transformational change in our schools. It is too long that too many children have had to go to a failing school. For too long, we have not had anyone on the school board to stand up for students, parents, and taxpayers in those reasons, in that order. Every child, no matter what, should have the same chance that I did, the same chances that Marlena did, and right now, that is not happening. And so I'm a fighter by nature, and I keep fighting the bell.
Okay, you can keep standing, please, if you feel comfortable standing when you're asked questions. My next question is, name one area where you disagree with your party's stance.
Well, first of all, I'm not the endorsed Democrat, and I'm not the endorsed Republican. So I guess I'm running as an independent. Okay, so, but I will say this: I disagree with my party that they don't believe that public education is important enough to run candidates for the school board, and my party does not care enough about kids, and kids especially of color. And I think that for too long, the Republican Party has ignored all the people in cities and urban areas. And so I think that that's one way where I would disagree with my party.
Thank you. Marlena, same question.
So I am a Democrat, not endorsed, but I don't need the official party to tell me that I'm a Democrat. I have a lot of things I disagree about currently related to this race. What I see locally and to an extent across the nation that I have a problem with in the Democratic Party is we the people should be the ones deciding what candidates we're putting forward. For example, the presidential race. It shouldn't be this is who the party decided is going to be the candidate. It's we vote in primaries and that's who you decide on. Don't have a front runner already decided before we get to decide.
Steve, this question is for you, and actually it's going to be a two-part question because I want to know, you say that you're a lawyer, and that probably takes up a lot of your time being that you're a lawyer, and how much time would you have to devote to the school board if you are currently a practicing lawyer?
Want me to answer that first?
Yeah.
So I've been blessed that my practice has been limited because I have a very limited number of clients that I do work for. And so I do not work at a law firm any longer. I do not work for the public defender's office or the prosecutor's office or anything like that. So I have talked with my clients and who I represent, and they are totally okay with as much time as I need to take to be a member of the school board. Now, let's not forget that the school board is not like city council, that, you know, they meet committees a couple times a week, and then there's a weekly city council meeting that takes 3 or 4 hours and things like that. So I definitely, based on being, the school board is not meant to be a full-time position. It's not paid that way. It's paid like a couple $100s a meeting. So I will have ample time to devote to this office.
And here's my final question, and this will be for you too as well, Marlena. What do you believe to be the best approach to disciplining misbehaving children and teens ages 5 to 9 and 10 to 18? Either one of you guys can address that for me, please.
Okay. So I'm really encouraged by a lot of what's going on in the district in terms of using restorative practices for our discipline. We need to be getting better at that because we've talked about it for a long time. But we do now have a policy in which students who are under, I believe it's 3rd grade and under, we do not put them in out-of-school suspension. What we need to do is take a look case by case what's going on in our children's lives, because some of them, it's not, I'm a bad child. Some of it, you don't know what's going on in their lives. You don't know what they've seen before they've gotten to school that might have caused them to act out. And that's for all ages. I think I'll stop there before the buzzer hits me.
I agree with Marlena as to restorative justice, but here's what I'm going to say. Any child, I don't care if they're a 1st grader, I don't care if they're a 12th grader, if they commit an assault on a school teacher, they need to be out of the school, period. I'm going to draw the line right there and say that if you strike a teacher, you're out, period. So I do think that with that, accepting assaulting teachers, which is going on in our Cincinnati public schools at all grade levels, we need to take a case-by-case basis because facts matter, and facts go into the application of discipline, just like facts go into the application of the rule of law, which I've been doing my entire professional career as an attorney. So that would be my answer to discipline. A one-size-all-fits discipline program should not be in place unless it happens to be someone assaulting a school teacher.
Thank you. Please keep standing if you feel comfortable standing when you answer the question. I have another question for you, Steve. How long have you been a resident in Cincinnati, and did you run for Covington City Commissioner after completing a 2-year term?
So I'm from Northern Kentucky originally. My wife, so this is a funny story. My wife and I got married, and she said that under no circumstances was she moving to Kentucky, and under no circumstances was I moving to Hyde Park or Mount Lookout within a quarter mile of my in-laws, and likewise she didn't want to be a quarter mile within my in-laws. So we chose to live in North Avondale. It's probably one of the most diverse neighborhoods in the city. We're proud residents in North Avondale, and we have lived in the city I've lived in the city for about 7 years. So I think that answers the question.
How long ago was it that you ran for commissioner?
10 years ago,
Okay.
12 years ago.
Okay, awesome.
I had a lot less gray hair then, and I didn't have my wife there either.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to address Marlena and then Steve. Marlena, the current superintendent, Laura Mitchell, has put in place a 3-year strategy plan that makes a smart investment through our budget. But the school system has increased 20% more students than the levy is paying for. CPS claims state funds for the renewal levy are chronologically insufficient based on the state formula that does not fund new year enrollment. So how do you oppose to filling in the gap of 20% more students on the budget that the levy already has?
One thing that I've thought might be a place we can look is, when was the last time student fees were raised? I would like to see a comparison with other districts to see how much are we paying, how much are they paying. That's one place, but I also know that if we take a fine-tooth comb to the budget, we'll be able to make some wiggle room. There are some things that I've seen money being spent on by the district that could have paid for teachers.
How are you going to close the gap on a 20% increase of student enrollment without the levy being passed?
So I'm going to be real simple. CPS does not have a revenue problem, it has a spending problem, okay, bar none. You have a $620 million operating budget, divide that by 36,000 kids, that equals $17,000 per pupil. You look at their website, that's actually $8,000 or $9,000 that's actually spent in the classroom. Where is the rest of the money going? Especially when we can't even get the buses on time. So here's what I would do. Is about 20 years ago, they did something called the Banger Commission Report, and it was a top-to-bottom review of CPS's finances. And that was back when levies didn't pass. So what they found then was 20 years ago was they had a bloated central office. I think that over 20 years, when everyone's voting yes for the levies and they have as much money as they want to spend on whatever they want, again, they've spent too much on central office versus classrooms versus books versus technology for the kids. And I would take a fine-tooth comb to the budget. And from working at the city, I've gone through a large budget before working for a council member, so I'm not afraid of a $600 million budget when we used to go through a $350 million budget at the city.
Thank you. And I am going to open the floor just for three questions from the audience. And we're going to start with a question up here, and then Senator Thomas will take the mic for other questions, but we're only taking three.
I'd like to know, either of you, in particularly you, Steve, have you ever volunteered to tutor children as well as teens, and in particular the inner city students? If so, how long and how effective were you?
So the answer to your question is no, and that's, we're not all perfect people, and so could I do more? Yes. Should I do more? Yes. Is my unique ability and my skill set, should I be doing more? Absolutely. Am I doing enough? Absolutely not. My wife and I have not been blessed with children yet. And so we have not had an opportunity to engage in CPS as a parent. So do I think that that should be a prerequisite or a detraction from being a member of the school board? No. I think what I would bring to the school board would be the ability to be a problem solver and somebody who's going to have real ideas and real solutions to our problems. And so that's why I'm running for the school board, because we've looked at the school board. Look at the school board. Look what we're getting. We're getting a failing school district. We're getting a D, a D, a D. Look at across the board, the height. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, Steve, I have a question for you. On the question, and I'm paraphrasing it now, what would be your approach to discipline? And there was for students, and there was a division by age for students 5 to 9 and students 10 to 18. And your response was, if a student assaulted a teacher, you are out. So did you see any distinction between a child that is 5 and a child that is 10 and a child that is 18 assaulting a teacher?
I do see the difference, but I don't think that student should be in the classroom. And with the 5-year-old or the 10-year-old or a 16-year-old, kids should know the difference by the time they enter school, the difference between right and wrong. And so right and wrong is you don't go up and punch somebody or throw a desk at somebody or throw your pencils at somebody. So yeah, I would treat a 5-year-old differently than a 10-year-old and a 16-year-old. With a 5-year-old, I think that we need to pull them aside and we need to counsel them. One of the problems in CPS is we don't have a counselor in every school. If a school doesn't have 500 kids, they don't have a librarian, they don't have an art teacher, they don't have a music teacher, and most of the time they don't have a counselor. That's wrong. So yeah, I do think that we need to counsel the kid who's 5-year-old who may be acting out and finding out if it's something at home or it's something in their, they have some adversity at home that we need to figure out what's going on so that they may be able to return to the classroom. I'm all about second chances, but when someone assaults a teacher, I think that they need to be brought out, and I hope that answers your question.
If a child says 12, 13 years old and they're put out of the public school for an assault, what result do they have? What other opportunity do they have for education?
Well, I think that we need. Well, is this a third question, or is it? But I'll answer it if that's okay.
We're counting it as a follow-up question, but go ahead and answer, please.
Okay. So your question is: a 12 or 13-year-old assaults a teacher?
Yeah, they get put out. What other alternatives do they have?
I think again with the 12 or 13-year-old, I think that we need to figure out what's going wrong in the child's life and counsel them. And I think that a 12 or 13-year-old may have problems either psychologically or at home or something like that, and we need to ferret it out. I mean, we could put them in a in-school, a detention situation until we figure out what's going on, and until we have counselors in every one of our CPS schools. We're not going to. This is going to continue to happen.
Okay, last question.
Earlier, you spoke to the school-to-prison pipeline, and I'd like to know, do you know what the percentages are of white people versus black people as far as administrators, principals, teachers are concerned? My purpose for asking that question is because there's a cultural divide. We've got to accept that as a fact. Will there be any incentives for going out and getting more black teachers in order to accommodate our children who understand them?
Was that for me, sir? Damn right we should be doing that. Damn right is my answer. I'm sorry, I forgot I was in the house worship for a minute. Sorry. But to answer your question, yes, I'm the only candidate running for the school board in my race that has a plan to recruit African American school teachers and principals. Half of the teachers in CPS, 3,000 of them, have less than 5 years worth of experience. Half of the principals in CPS have less than 5 years worth of experience. And in order to, and I agree with you, 110%, we need more African American school teachers now, and I am the only candidate for school board that's talking about that now. We need to partner with HBCUs now to recruit teachers, give them a signing bonus now, so that we can, and give them down payment assistance from the city now. And if you hear either of my two opponents even talk about this issue, which they're not, please tell me. And I'm sorry I'm screaming, but this is something I'm very passionate about. I'm passionate about this because for too long, too many kids have been in a pipeline from school to prison. And it's got to stop when you stop voting for the same school board members over and over and over again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Did you want to rebut because he called out, said no other teachers are speaking about it?
No, candidates in my race.
Not in her race.
It's okay, we can go ahead and give her a minute to respond to any question that he was asked because she was not asked specific questions.
Did you want to respond to any of the questions that were asked that you didn't get? Okay, awesome.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to respond. Can we go ahead and say thank you to our school board candidates? Please make sure that you go ahead. You guys can exit. please make sure that you go ahead and mark your ballots. We hand it out to everybody, the sheets so that you can vote on your candidates. You should have 2 sheets, one for school board and one for the judicial candidates. And let me also say that all of the candidates were invited tonight. I did get an inbox from one candidate who said he was left off, but somehow. But we did invite all candidates, and we also contacted the party to make sure that the candidates were aware. So now what we want to do is to invite candidates up. I'd like our 2 prosecutor candidates who are going to be running for prosecutor. They're just going to speak this evening. They're not going to be asked questions because we'd like to invite them back, and their race is not a November race. They don't run until 2020, and so we just want them to have an opportunity to introduce themselves this evening. And if we can go ahead and have Judge Fanon Rucker to start, and then we'll have Gabe Davis. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd ask you to keep something in mind while I talk for the next 2.5 minutes. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, do hereby establish justice. That's conceptually what we're talking about. But the reality is we know that the justice system has a whole lot of work to do. My name is Fanon Rucker. I don't think I'm a stranger. Not only to this church. There's been times when I've been blessed enough to stand in pulpit, not only in this church and several other churches around our county, but you all know me because you don't just see me on the bench. You also see me in the community. In the summer between my junior and senior year in college, I was talking to this Court of Appeals judge. I was going back to Hampton, HBCU, on my way back to school, and I told him of my interest in wanting to go to law school. I had seen Rodney King be assaulted by a bunch of police officers. And then those officers were acquitted because it got moved to Simi Valley. You know, those tricks that prosecutors play sometimes. And after they were acquitted, there were riots all over the country. And that's what made me decide I wanted to be a lawyer. So I'm talking to this Court of Appeals judge in Indiana. I went back home from Gary, Indiana. I'm sitting down with this Court of Appeals judge. And I told him of my interest in wanting to go to law school. And he said, well, I tell you what, if you want to go to law school because you want to make money, don't do it. Be a used car salesman. And I can tell you about a case I had when I was doing discrimination work that actually is pretty amazing. Anyway, all right. So he said, but if you want to go to law school because you want to make a difference, because you believe you can change the world, then by all means, that's why you should go to law school. And ladies and gentlemen, that Court of Appeals judge went on to become a Supreme Court justice. I call him Dad. I see him quite a bit. We talk all the time. Those words were instilled in me my entire career. And I promise you, my entire career has been on nothing but trying to make a difference, trying to make our system more transparent, trying to build public trust in the system. As a prosecutor for 5 years with the city, I saw myself as a check on the system. I left the prosecutor's office and I became a civil rights lawyer and an employment discrimination lawyer, representing plaintiffs in federal lawsuits, in federal court and in state court, representing individuals who were underrepresented and whose voices were not being heard. And then I ran for prosecutor 15 years ago. And after 7 weeks, I raised more money than the guy who was in office. 7 weeks, I raised more money than somebody who had already been sitting there and who had been chair of the Republican Party. And I also got 95,000 write-in votes after 7 weeks of running. It was because the message was about passion. The message was about how we need to change our system. And so then I was fortunate enough to be elevated to judge, where for the past 12 years I've presided over a couple 100,000 cases. And in 270, I can promise you nobody ever said they were not treated fairly. People can say they didn't like the decision, but they never had a question. I wrote more decisions than everybody else on the bench in Hamilton County. I was elected to state leadership in our state judges association. I'm currently a bar examiner, so I'm one of 15 lawyers across the state that writes the rules for people to become lawyers, and then we grade their exams to make sure that they... Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Fanon Rucker. You can still call me judge. Once a judge, always a judge. But I want to be, and I will be, your next Hamilton County prosecutor.
Next candidate for prosecutor, Hamilton County prosecutor, is Mr. Gabe Davis, and I'm going to give you the floor.
All right. Good evening, folks. My name is Gabe Davis, and I'm running for Hamilton County Prosecutor because it is time for a new generation of leadership to step up and transform a broken justice system. When I was a federal prosecutor in President Barack Obama's Justice Department, I traveled the country for years investigating and prosecuting hate crimes and official misconduct cases involving police officers engaged in excessive force and other acts of misconduct. And I did that work. I prosecuted cases in the Civil Rights Division because President Obama called on a new generation to step up and to serve. He called for new leadership to transform systems by stepping into old systems and making a change. And that's why I'm running for prosecutor. I'm running because we got some old systems here in this town that could use some change, that could use a shakeup.
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm a father to a young daughter, and I'm concerned for her future. I'm concerned because right now, we have a mass incarceration crisis in this country and in this county. I'm concerned because we have a bail crisis in this county. I'm concerned because we have a war on drugs that has run amok and that's locking up our children in this county. I'm concerned because bullets are flying and killing our kids here in this county. And I know I have what it takes to make a change and to solve these problems. I'm from here. I grew up here. My father was a police officer here for 16 years. My mom managed a Head Start program over at the Community Action Agency not too far from where we're sitting right now. So I have deep roots here. I have a deep love for this place I've always called home. I've surmounted some huge challenges in my life. I was the first person in my family to go to a 4-year college, but I worked hard. I got into Yale, worked my way through Yale, came back here, worked for the Center for Closing the Health Gap in communities like Avondale and Walnut Hills to help reduce health disparities, to help bring about racial justice in this town. And then I got into Harvard Law School, worked my way through Harvard Law School. And for the next 7 years, I prosecuted cases in some of the toughest courtrooms in this country. So I know I have what it takes to make a change, to reform and fix a broken system that holds us back here in this county. As prosecutor, I will work to end mass incarceration. I will work to end cash bail. I will work to reverse wrongful convictions. I will take the money that we save from these reforms and I'll put them into getting guns off our streets, reducing shootings, reducing domestic violence and violence against women and children. And I will ensure we have a prosecutor who respects our community, who doesn't call our youth irredeemable like Joe Givens did. I'll ensure we have a prosecutor who doesn't call for the National Guard on our streets with more guns pointed at our kids. A prosecutor who doesn't insult our leaders, who doesn't trash and slander our leaders like Judge Hunter, who doesn't launch political prosecutions and engage in conflicts of interest that taint justice in this country. Now, when I went off to go to Harvard Law School, some people told me, people that I trusted and loved right here in this town, they told me, Cincinnati's no place for a young man of color who has dreams and has intelligence. Never come back here. Go to Atlanta, go to D.C. I said, I believe in this place I've always called home. And we would never have justice until we all have a seat at that table. So I'm fighting to give us a seat at that table, to make sure that your children have new leadership. My name is Gabe Davis. That is our courthouse. That is our prosecutor's office. Never let them tell you anything different. Let's go take it together.
Our judge candidates, judicial candidates, please come up to the stage. And while they're coming up, let me ask, are there any other candidates here who are not judge candidates, not school board candidates? So one more candidate. Can you come up while they're taking the stage and just give us a brief introduction?
Hello everyone, my name is Jamie Ray and I'm running for Springfield Township Trustee. Been a volunteer coach for a long time and I've always been looking for an opportunity to do more. And with Gwen McFarland getting promoted to chairwoman of the Board of Elections, she's not allowed to run again in a race that she would be refereeing. And I'm the one she picked to run for her seat. So Gwen saw some effort that I'm willing to put in and thought that I would be willing to bring that to Springfield Township, and I am. So Springfield Township has a tax issue. 80% of the burden is on the residents and only 20% on businesses, and they really need more businesses in that township. I have the background, an MBA and 22 years experience in strategic planning and business development, and I want to bring more complementary businesses into town. I want to get businesses that will buy products or people that will sell products that will help our existing businesses and small business owners. nurseries and people that'll sell trees to help the landscaping company so that they'll have more work to do and we can try and raise all businesses in the township. But I'm the only Democrat on the ballot running in Springfield Township. I'm endorsed by the Democratic Party and I have the full support of Gwen McFarland. And any Springfield Township residents, you have questions, please ask. If not, I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you say your name one more time?
Jamie Ray, running for Springfield Township Trustee.
Thank you. So these are our judicial candidates this evening. We're going to start by giving each of you, do we have time to give them 3 minutes to speak? Or okay, we'll give you 3 minutes each to introduce yourself. After you introduce yourself, then we'll ask questions from the panel, and then we'll have, if we have time, we will have questions from the audience as well. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll start at this end down here and then work our way down.
My name is Erica Underwood, and I was born and raised in Hamilton County, city of Cincinnati. I actually grew up in the Fay Apartments. I attended Washington Park Elementary School, Walnut Hills High School, then I attended Tuskegee University and the University of Cincinnati College of Law. I have 3 children. My oldest son he's been married for 5 years. He's also a graduate of UC College of Law, and I'm expecting my first grandchild. I have a daughter who's a senior at Miami University and a son who's a sophomore at Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology. I've been an attorney for over 23 years. The last 12 years, I've been an attorney for the Hamilton County Public Defender's Office. And as an attorney with the Public Defender's Office, I am in the courthouse every single day, fighting on behalf of people who are the most vulnerable in our society, fighting for people who before, we have this generation of fighters, nobody fought for. And that's what I do every day. And that's what I've done every day. So I know what's going on in that courthouse because I'm there every day to see it. If we want to change our justice system, we need to change the judges. We need to change where the judges come from. And I'm a part of that change. So I will appreciate your support. And again, my name is Erica Underwood. My district is District 6. That's Green Township, Colerain Township, parts of Springfield Township, and Cheviot. Thank you.
And because I forgot to say, I'm sorry, all judges, please, all judicial candidates, please tell us what your district is and what neighborhoods your district is composed of. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Bloom. I am running for judge in District 5. So District 5 is the northeastern side of our county. It starts all the way up with Sims Township, down to Loveland, all the way down the side of the county through Indian Hill to Terrace Park, and then across the top through Sharonville, Glendale, Springdale, Evendale. It includes Blue Ash, Sycamore Township, Madeira, Deer Park, and every other little place in between there. So if you're from there, or you know someone from there, then you tell them their candidate is Carrie Bloom. So, like Erica, I work at the Public Defender's Office. I've spent my entire career being a public servant. I've been an attorney for about 8 years now. I graduated from the University of Cincinnati College of Law and then started working. I started out in the juvenile division of the Public Defender's Office, where I got to work really hard, and that's where my heart is. I think I left it there, working for kids who the state and the city tries to bind over to the adult court. They want to bind them over, they want to send them to adult prison. Something I disagree with, and I work really hard to try to prevent that from happening and to try to educate the community and others on why it's important that we don't do that anymore. We talked a little bit earlier, or we heard about the school to prison pipeline, and that is just one more step that we take in our zero tolerance policies of some of our children in our county. So after working for the juvenile division, I worked for the state public defender's office for a little while. I got to learn about state budgets, county budgets, where our money comes from, how we can get more money for the things that we need, and how to advocate for what we want and to connect and network with people that can help us. And I got to work with Senator Thomas, which was some of the most fun and some of the best learning that I got to do. Then coming back to Cincinnati, I worked in the municipal court division of the Public Defender's Office, which is the position that I'm running for now. And there we call it the People's Court. I think we all call it that. It's where over 100,000 cases a year come through the court, civil and criminal combined, and it is where you're most likely to run into the court system or the criminal justice system as a citizen. And that means that we have the best potential to help with something that we've said all evening with restorative justice. In municipal court, you aren't going to prison and you aren't going to jail for very long. So what we have to do is we have to make sure that we are acknowledging that and that we are connecting folks back with the community in a way that we can prevent recidivism. So I'm running for municipal court judge out of that history and out of that background and out of a passion to really work for the community and to really continue my work as a public servant.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is John Kennedy. I am running in District 4, which is basically the southeast corner of the county. I'm running for judge because our criminal justice system is broken. And I've seen the limits of what I can do as a trial attorney to effectuate change in the system. I went to Miami for undergrad, I went to UC for law school, and when I was at UC, I was fortunate enough to be able to do the Ohio Innocence Project. And I learned the stories of people around Ohio who have been locked up for crimes and served decades in prison for crimes that they did not commit. And that taught me two fundamental truths. Our criminal justice system is broken, and the representation that these individuals got was terrible. And I thought I could do better. And that's why I went to be a trial attorney after I graduated. That's what I've done. I have been in the courthouse 95% of the days that I've been an attorney. And I've seen the changes that we need. We need bail reform. Every day in this county we lock up people because they're poor on low-level, nonviolent offenses. That needs to stop. Pre-trial incarceration does not solve a problem, it creates a problem. And we need to stop that. And like Erica said, we need judges that understand that pre-trial incarceration is not solving anything. We need judges who are fair. We have judges who decide a case simply based on whether you are the prosecutor or you are the defense. We need that to stop. Everybody up here could probably tell you a number of judges who have already decided guilt or innocence based on what side of the aisle they're on. And if anybody's been here down to the courthouse, you will see a line out the door because the judges start their dockets at 9 o'clock almost without exception. And what happens with that is it's very convenient for all the judges and it's very inconvenient for everybody else. And that is something that needs to change. Afternoon, the courthouse is empty. Why is that? The judges are still there, but there's no dockets. We need to change these things. And that's why I'm running for judge. District 4 is the southeast corner of the county. So it goes basically from 8th and Plum downtown, out to Anderson, up to Mariemont, Fairfax, Oakley, Norwood. But it encompasses Mount Adams, Mount Washington, Mount Lookout, Hyde Park, Columbia, Tusculum, the East End. But I know I heard a question, somebody wanted to know party affiliation. I'm endorsed by the Democratic Party. I'll put that out there. I know sometimes we had a panel last night. There was a question whether the judicial candidates were allowed to say. So no one ever asks. I wanted to get out in front of it because I know at least somebody out there was interested as soon as we started. But again, my name is John Kennedy and I'm running in Hamilton County Municipal Court District 4.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. My name is Tyrone Yates and I'm running for re-election to District 2 of the Hamilton County Municipal Court. I was appointed by the governor in January of 2010, where I have served continuously since that time. I'm a graduate of the Cincinnati Public Schools, Withrow High School, the University of Cincinnati, and the University of Toledo College of Law. I'm a former Ohio Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights and Workers' Compensation, a former 5-term member of Cincinnati City Council with 2 terms as Vice Mayor of the city, 4 terms as a member of the Ohio House of Representatives and Chairman of its Criminal Law Committee and the Joint Committee on Prison Inspections, which is how the governor asked me and why he asked me to serve on the court. Bail reform is very important. I don't start my docket at 9 o'clock. It typically starts at 9:30 or 9:45. There are any number of reforms that are important. I hope that you will return me to the court. The district really stretches from North Avondale out to Madisonville with neighborhoods in between like Roselawn, Bond Hill, Clifton, Northside, College Hill, St. Bernard, Elmwood Place. And with my remaining time, I think this is the first time I've had the opportunity. Mrs. Yates, will you stand up? I'd like to introduce you to my wife, Karen, who works. She doesn't always enjoy campaigning, though. But anyway, I live in Kennedy Heights, and I'm very, very happy to be with you tonight. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. My name is Janea Trotter Bratton, and I am running in Municipal Court District 1. District 1 is comprised of Avondale, Evanston, Clifton Heights, University Heights, the West End, Mount Auburn, Walnut Hills, East Walnut Hills, downtown Pendleton, over the Rhine, North Fairmount, East Westwood, Clifton. I think I said Clifton Heights. I started my career out as a prosecutor in the City of Cincinnati Prosecutor's Office, working exclusively in the municipal court. I then left and went into private practice, where I handle criminal defense cases and family law cases and some civil cases. I've spent the last 3.5 years of my life practicing exclusively civil rights cases. And that has given me the opportunity to work in courts across Ohio and in the federal and state level. I am running because I see the need, like everyone else here, for a change in the judiciary. And I've worked toward that since I headed the Hamilton County Democratic Party's Judicial Committee starting in 2013. And my goal has been to create a diverse bench, a qualified bench, and a bench that really cares about individuals. And when Judge Rucker decided to step down, that left a hole in our courthouse. It left a hole when we are looking at the justice that is dispensed. And I decided to run because I feel like I would be the best person to replace Judge Rucker. I just want to say one thing about Democrat and Republican, and I am a Democrat. I'm the endorsed Hamilton County Democratic candidate. There is a reason that we are saying Democrat, and some people may not say Republican, but it is because the administrative judgeship is so important. It's so important that when Judge Hunter had the opportunity, they changed the rules with the Supreme Court. And I did not realize how important it was, even when I took over the Judicial Committee. But once I figured it out, it has been my work to get a majority on the bench of Democratic candidates to change the courthouse. We always say we elect people and we don't see any change. It's because we only change the courtroom. We don't change the courthouse. If you want change in the courthouse, then you need to give us the numbers so that we can make that change, because everything happens with a vote from you and from us. Thank you.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. My name is John Coleman, and I am running for Municipal Court Judge in District 2. I'm a native Cincinnati, and I grew up right in Bond Hill, right down the road. I'm a 1985 graduate of Withrow High School. Went away to college, ended up back in Cincinnati for law school, where I attended University of Cincinnati College of Law, 1997 graduate. Shortly thereafter, I became a criminal defense attorney with the Hamilton County Public Defender's Office. And over the span of about 10 years, I handled over 7,000 cases for them. So I did 2 years in juvenile and about 8 years in municipal court. So I was going to court every day, standing with defendants, trying to be a champion of justice for my people in my community. Since 2011, I've been a magistrate in Hamilton County Juvenile Court. And I work in the Dependency, Abuse, and Neglect Division. Those types of cases are also known as 241 kids cases. So when you're making decisions about children's welfare and where children are ultimately going to end up and who they're going to end up with, you have to do a lot of writing, and you have to write a lot of opinions. There are 3 things that I'd like for you to know about me as a candidate. First, I have the competency and the abilities and the skills to be successful in this position. I've been a legal professional for 20 years now, right here in Cincinnati. Secondly, I'd like for you to know that I have the demeanor and the disposition and the personality and the humility to be an excellent municipal court judge. Lastly, I'd like for you to know that I'm approaching this judgeship with the utmost respect and dignity for the position. I am being obedient to what was placed on my heart and on my mind by the Creator with regard to this position. I understand that this position is all about service. It's about serving the interests of the community. Service is very important to me, and it's been a priority, and I got that from the fraternal organizations to which I belong. I have my hand on the pulse of the community. I'm going to keep it there. I'm holding myself out as John Coleman, the right choice right now. A major part of why I believe I'm the right choice is my relationship with the community and my commitment to serving the community and my belief that it's time for a change with regard to the position that I'm seeking. I am endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police and also the Hamilton County Republican Party. I believe in second, third, fourth chances when they're warranted, but I also believe that the community has interests that needs to be protected. I'm able to manage and balance those issues. I will be immensely fair and reasonable with regard to every phase of the legal process, be it setting a bond,
Thank you, sir.
the trial process, or sentencing. Thank you for your attention.
For the sake of the audience who is identifying the candidates that they are voting for, on your sheets they are separated by races and by the district. There are 2 District 1s, and they are running in 2 separate races. Dwayne Mallory is running in District 1 for a 6-year term. And for the other District 1, it's Janaya Trotter Bratton and Elisa Murphy for a 4-year term. So there are 2 District 1s. And each of the races shows the opponent who is running against one another, so you know for the sake of voting. And of course, after the forum, we will be sticking around and identifying which candidates the coalition will be selecting. For the candidates, just so you know, this body is composed of Democrats and Republicans. I know you see many brown faces, but there are many brown faces that are independents, Democrats, and Republicans in the room, just so you know. We'll go ahead now and proceed with our questions. And my first question is a question that I will pose to all of you, so you can just pass the mic. The first question is, what is your general philosophy concerning how you will rule as a judge? And then can you describe any alternative discipline methods you will use? So that is a question that is posed. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer that question.
Thank you. I believe that the employees surrounding a judge reflect the judge's judicial philosophy. So my philosophy will be to avoid a conviction at all costs while protecting everybody's rights. So if there's an opportunity for two individuals to solve a dispute with mediation, I would like to do that. For example, passing bad check cases and theft cases where we can make the person whole with simply the paying of restitution. I also believe that probation officers should understand that a person who works an hourly job cannot show up at random. You can't, you want to make sure that somebody makes the situation right, but we don't want to make that situation worse for that individual. So I will also discourage probation violations because you didn't come to the probation office dressed inappropriately, whatever that means. Thank you.
My philosophy will be based in perspective, and getting perspective from all the parties who are involved in the cases, and then also giving perspective back. So in municipal court, we often have two parties, not just the state and the defendant. We often have someone that we would consider a prosecuting witness or a victim who's there as well. And usually in municipal court, those two people know each other, and they're going to go back to the same community, and they might even be neighbors. And so giving perspective as to them, what this case means, what the sentence, if there is a conviction, means, and how that is to be taken out into the community to help them, again, avoid any sort of recidivism or issues between the two of them, is my philosophy. As far as alternative sentencing or other ways to divert cases, I think that's another place that we bring our perspective in, and we bring in the other the options that other organizations in our communities offer us. Make sure that us as judges here and as other judges on the bench, we know what's available to us. Thank you.
I hate to kind of sound like a broken record, but we need to increase diversionary programs and programs that help deal with the underlying issues that give rise to crime, like poverty, like mental health, like addiction. A lot of the times we just lock people up and say, okay, well, you're going to be incarcerated for X number of days or months or years, but you're cast out afterward and you're expected to do more with less. And that doesn't solve what is the core issue. And we need judges that understand, and my philosophy is that everybody should be treated with dignity and respect, but we should do more than just see them as a charge on a piece of paper, and we should deal with them as such, and that will help the community at large and the county at large, because it will cut down on cost of the system, but will also help our individuals. And we need to get rid of jury taxes.
Thank you.
My judicial philosophy is based in my experience in the church. And by what I mean by that is, I frequently think about what would the historical Jesus do with the defendant. I put myself in the shoes of defendants as I judge the cases, and I believe that the persons who find themselves guilty of offenses should be treated with human dignity in every case. Finally, I was out doing something over the weekend, and a FedEx truck stopped and it wasn't a package for me. The FedEx driver got out and came over to me and said, "Thank you, Judge Yates, for giving me a second chance. I now have this great job with FedEx, and you gave me a second chance. So I'm the judge of second chances." That's my philosophy.
My judicial philosophy is that jail should be for those who are violent and those who are continuous repeat offenders. Other than that, especially in municipal court, one of my colleagues up here said it, individuals are getting out and we need to give them the tools to be successful when they do. And so that includes diversionary programs, it includes having a, like Ms. Underwood said, a probation department that understands people's plight in life when it comes to employment. And part of that is also diversity. And so we do need diversity because diversity of perspectives helps us have different policies in place. Thank you.
My judicial philosophy is simply to do the right thing all the time and do the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing. Some people struggle. Well, I can say that it's not hard to know what's right and what's fair and what's just, what's reasonable, what's practical. It's just a matter of doing it. Some people struggle with the follow-through and actually making that happen and making that a reality for the people that come before them in court. I will not have that issue.
The next question, and this is addressed to all of you with a hand raised, whether you oppose or not. Do any of you believe in appointed positions? Raise your hand.
Appointing judges.
Appointing judges that, benches that are unseated. Do any of you support appointing a judge? Raise your hand for those, it's just a yes or no answer. Which one of you do? Okay, so the others are opposed?
Is it a vacancy? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes,
Appointed
so
judge
there's
to
a vacancy to be appointed
Okay.
or to earn it by an election.
Okay.
So you, Tyrone Yates, and you do too? And you, John?
To appoint.
I just wanted to, my other question is Janaea Trotter. Would you say, what have you said or done anything different in your testimony at Judge Tracy Hunter trial? Would you have done anything different?
No. Everything I did was the truth, and prior to my testimony, and I did testify for the defense, if some people don't know that because there's a commercial that is running a mistruth, and I talked to defense counsel and told defense counsel everything that I was going to say. My attorney was there as well because they were coming after me from the Supreme Court. So, no, there is nothing. I told the truth. So that's what I have is integrity. And I told the truth to defense counsel prior to them deciding to, or defense counsel deciding to put me on the stand. So no.
And my next question is for each of you. Do you believe in criminal justice system needs to be reformed, and why?
When I ran for judge last year, I actually looked at every single case that was filed in 2017, and 67% of the individuals who were indicted were African American. That is a problem. If on the face of it, it looks bad, just in practice, it is horrible. I don't believe that 67% of people who commit crimes in Hamilton County are African Americans, but if you look at the numbers, that's what it looks like. that means that there's a problem in our justice system, not only with police officers, but also with judges, with prosecutors. So yes, there is a problem with our justice system, and I know that firsthand, not only because of that, but also because I am in those courtrooms every day. I am in the jail every day, and I can tell you what I see, and that what I see is reflected in those numbers that I just shared with you.
Yes, we need to reform the criminal justice system, and to build off of what Erica said, we work together with John as well, and in all of the courtrooms in the courthouse. We are there every single day, and every single day we stand beside our client and we fight with two people. We usually fight with two people, the prosecutor and the judge. And you heard from the prosecutors, we're trying to change that, and we're all up here trying to change the judges, because we shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't have to go in and argue with the judge about what constitutional rights exist. We should be arguing with the judge or arguing with the prosecutor over were they violated or not if they even exist. Now, that is where, again, you heard I'm a public defender, that's where my passion lies, is fighting on behalf of other people, sometimes a little bit too much. My mom wishes I would calm down sometimes, but that is what we have to do, and that is a problem. And that is just one example of where the system is broken.
Yes, the criminal justice system does need reform. I mentioned it in my opening statement. Bail reform, we need bail reform. We lock up too many people. Pretrial incarceration, I believe Judge Rucker mentioned just last night, between about 65% of people in the Justice Center right now have not been convicted of any crime. That's a breakdown of the system. And like I mentioned at the end of my last answer, there is an understanding in most courtrooms that if you go to trial and lose, you will get the maximum sentence. That's what I referenced when I mentioned a jury tax. And that is a truth that we as defense attorneys have to live with. And when we have clients going through a system that the judges view them exercising their constitutional rights not as the foundation of the system, but a flaw in the system, that's a problem. And we do need to reform. And we need judges that understand that exercising the system, exercising the rights, is not a problem.
Certainly there's a great need for criminal justice reform, and sitting there I had a chance to think about the question a minute, to try to give each of you to feel with me this example. Remember the Great Recession of 2008 and all of the terrible behavior on Wall Street? And not a single millionaire or billionaire was charged with a crime or went to jail. In our court systems across America and in Hamilton County, people who are white, brown, non-citizens, citizens, and African Americans and others are overly penalized because we are poor. And that needs to stop.
By the time you get to us, all the good answers are gone.
We're going to start at the other end for the next question.
Okay. But I agree with everyone up here. Criminal justice reform is definitely needed. The jury tax needs to go away. Defendants should be able to exercise their constitutional rights in the courtroom. Judges should be there until 4 o'clock. If you want a jury trial, you should be able to request a jury trial, not be penalized for that jury trial. We need bail reform. There is no reason that if someone with money is able to post a bond but has the same score as someone without money, the person with money gets out and the person without money stays in, and they're no more a danger to society. And there are more people currently incarcerated in the Hamilton County Justice Center than there are people who have been convicted. So we do need a change in our system. And part of it starts with respect and seeing people as people and treating them that way. Thank you.
From my perspective, the criminal justice system is broken across multiple fronts. On the front end with the setting of bond, as you've heard statistics, and you know probably personally that there are way too many people locked up. There's a presumption of innocence until you're found guilty. That seems inconsistent with what we actually see across the trial process. Substantive and procedural due process sometimes breaks down. People fail to get it. And then with sentencing, there's so much disparity in sentencing, and I mean, there's just a tremendous problem. So I'm committed to working with others to do things to change, to make change to the policies, to the people, whatever needs to be done to improve the plight of the community coming to court.
This question is going to be for everybody. And it's concerning the Honorable Judge Tracy Hunter. What are your thoughts on the current situation? The current Judge Tracy Hunter, do you support the exoneration of Judge Hunter? You can start on each side.
I am going to abstain from answering that question. I am a magistrate in juvenile court, which is where she was from, and at this point I do not feel qualified or capable of satisfactorily answering that question. And I do not shy away. I've been called a Republican. I'm proud to be a Republican. I've been a Republican for 20 years. And I'm challenging you not to get stuck on that label and look at the man that's standing before you, check out his integrity and what he's about, and what he's capable of, and where he's coming from.
So you
I say that most humbly and most respectfully.
Answer regarding this question then. That I just posed. You asking for our vote though, right?
I'm asking for your vote.
Asking you to
and
help us to determine should we vote for you. And that's one of the questions that we're putting to you.
Okay, I submit.
Let me take that question and speak in favor of my colleague. It's often not understood, but he and I are both currently, we're the only ones, draped in the canons of judicial ethics. And I'm not permitted, nor is he, to answer the question under the canons.
Explain. Information is power.
She's saying thank you for explaining.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, judicial candidates are held by the same standards, but because I was asked a question and there is testimony that is on the record, I believe that I can say what was on the record. And exactly what I said was on the record is that Judge Hunter did nothing illegal. And my final words were, Judge Hunter did nothing wrong. So I will not say in her particular case, because it's still pending, but I will say I don't think innocent people should have a record. I don't think innocent people should go to jail. And I don't think that individuals who prove to be benefit to society and are not a danger to society and have shown that by showing up to court and continuing community service, there should be no reason that they should be in jail. And I've taken that position publicly. It has been my position from day one. I haven't hidden from it, and I didn't just start running commercials on it when I started running for election. It is what I have said. And if you don't like it, that's fine. But it is consistent, and it is what I have said all the time. I don't change.
Here's how I will answer your question. One day I might be a common pleas court judge. And you know the rules always apply to me because I am an African American woman. Never applies to some of them. It always applies to me. And I don't want anybody to try to recuse me from a case because of the way that I answered a question here today. But what I will tell you is this. I understand that people who look like me aren't treated correctly when they walk into courtrooms. I understand that people with my perspective aren't treated well when they walk into courtrooms. So know that my perspective is different from somebody who worked in Joe Dieter's prosecutor's office. You won't get that from me. So I hope that I'm able to answer your question just by telling you who I am, but I don't want to be recused the next time they try to come after somebody like that. I want to be one of the judges who gets to make the decision.
Similar to what Janaea and Erica have said, as candidates, we are limited in our speech, and we are limited in opinions that we can give, especially legal opinions, which sometimes hold us back. But I would let you know that I do work at the Public Defender's Office. And I work at the Public Defender's Office because I believe that innocent people are charged with crimes. And I believe that innocent people go to jail, and innocent people are in our prisons. And I think that is wrong, and it has to stop. And we have to elect a judiciary who understands that, and understands that it happens, and aren't afraid to look at their own decisions and say, I made a mistake, and to go back and say, I'm sorry. And so again, I don't feel that I can answer the question. Like Erica, I don't ever want someone to say that I couldn't be fair to them, because I feel I can be fair to everyone.
Yeah, I would echo what has already been said in terms of my limitations on being able to take a specific stance on a specific case. I believe the judicial canon, the judicial ethics rules that we have to follow, even as candidates, don't let us take those specific issues. However, I will tell you, I am a criminal defense attorney. I'm the director of the Commonwealth Police Division of the Public Defender's Office. I know that there are disparate cases where certain attorneys who get hired get very different results for their rich clients than anybody else that I get as a client. And that is based not on the facts of the case, but on who you know and who you know who knows Joe. And that is something that is absolutely.
Thanks all of you for answering what clearly was a very difficult question for everybody on the panel. We appreciate your candor in answering that question. I will ask a question in a very general way, and that will allow you to answer a question. My question is with regard to court cost. Judge Hunter was ordered to pay over $34,000 in court cost. According to the Clerk of Courts, Aftab Piraval, this is the highest amount anyone's ever had to pay in the history of the court. Please share your thoughts or feelings on court cost and how you intend as a judge to determine your assessment of court costs. Judges do have a lot of discretion as it relates to court costs, so we'd like to hear about that.
Generally, if a person is indigent, I waive the court costs.
You say someone cannot afford the court costs, which is what indigents, that he waives the court costs.
Yes, no, and Judge Yates is a good judge with that, finding people indigent and waiving court costs, but that's not true for all the judges. A lot of judges think, I'm going to just impose court costs regardless of your ability to pay. Because if you have me as your attorney, you've already been assessed to be indigent. And there are judges who disregard that and still impose court costs. But what happens is you get in this cycle where you have court costs that you cannot pay, and they are sent to collections, and then you have people hounding you to collect that money, or the jail if you get locked up later and your family puts money on your books. They will take that money for those court costs that have not been paid. And that is a system that needs to change. If you are indigent, you should not be forced to pay court costs because you're indigent. You're allowed to have an attorney. Why are you imposed with a fine that is discretionary? It shouldn't be that way.
We said the phrase criminal justice system several times tonight, and that is what it is. It's a criminal justice system. It's not a criminal justice business. It is not intended to make money, and the courthouse is not intended to be a self-serving financial building. You know, it's not on Wall Street. It's not on 4th Street in Cincinnati. And it is not intended to be run based on collecting money, who we from who we decide should go through that courthouse, right? So as a public defender, which, as John said, if I'm appointed to represent someone, they're at least 120% below the federal poverty line. So if a judge is assessing my client the max fines, then what are they assessing someone who's at the poverty line or above? The same, right? Because that's the max. So we have to bring that back into perspective for our judges. We have to elect judges who understand what the purpose of court costs are.
We sound like a broken record, but if you are indigent and you cannot afford to pay court costs, there's a mechanism to prevent you from paying court costs. If you have an indigency hearing, you're not assessed court costs. That's the way that it should be.
It's my impression that court costs should never be punitive.
I have a question.
Go ahead, she has it.
I agree with everyone up here. It should not be punitive, and if you can't afford court costs, it should not be something that is a hindrance and hanging over your head to move forward.
My question is to address John Coleman. What philosophy do you have in common with the FOP for them to endorse you? Think about it for a moment.
I was honored and privileged to get the endorsement from the Fraternal Order of Police. I was a criminal defense attorney for several years, and I always looked at the police as the enemy. I was always fighting against the police. I was always suspicious of what they said, what they did, and their account of what was going on, what was presented to the court. But I also believe that the police serve an important function. And any one of us, the first time, I don't own a firearm. If something goes down at my house right now, guess who the first people I'm going to call is the police. And I believe that I don't know what the percentage of we want to put on good police. I believe the good should always outweigh and win over evil. So I want to believe that there are 90+% good police officers out there. There are definitely some bad apples. There are some people that have been horrible to our interests as a community, plant evidence, lied, resulting in a whole lot of bad things. But I think they saw something in me that I was straightforward, I was honest, I was humble, I was respectful, and I think that I represent that my presentation was consistent with the principles that they stand for.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We are now going to allow the audience to ask questions of the judicial candidates. If you have a question for the candidates, please raise your hand and we will get the mic to you.
Good evening. So my question will be more specific for you, John.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm asking if you support the work of the collaborative agreement, the memorandum of understanding, and this refresh. Because the FOP pulled out once, Dan Hills has refused to sit down at the table to continue to work on the implementation of the recommendations. That class that sits inside of the collaborative agreement is all African Americans and or Black people who are perceived as such, who live and walk on the streets and thoroughfares of the city of Cincinnati, and who come into contact with the Cincinnati Police Department and are their agents. Then the last line reads, for all others. Because you know that Black folks are disproportionately impacted in a negative way by the Cincinnati Police, or we would have never had to file in federal court. We're 18 years in and we're just barely scratching the surface, and we have one heck of a time wrangling in the FOP. So can you please answer my question and tell me if you support the work of the collaborative agreement, the memorandum of understanding and the recommendations that came from a $350,000 assessment of the Cincinnati Police Department and the city, do you support those recommendations?
Yes, ma'am. It is without reservation that I support the collaborative agreement. I was here that entire time when everything broke down, and I've seen up close and personal some of the abuses that the community has suffered at the hands of the police. I have no doubt that police-community relations is one of the biggest issues within our criminal justice system that needs to be addressed and continues to be, it needs attention, and we should always be pushing for improvement. As a black man, I can tell you, there are times when I was growing up, I used to feel like if the police are around, I'm safe. I don't have anything to worry about. But as I've grown into a man, and I've lived life, and I've seen, I understand that I don't even want to be in a situation somebody says, I'm calling the police. Guess what? I don't want to be around, because I understand that when the police arrive, it could be hazardous to my health. I want to live. I want things to be okay. And while I respect the police, I understand that that's the situation, and that has been a problem, and it continues to be a problem. So I'm with the collaborative agreement and everything that it stands for, and I cannot speak against the collaborative. I can't, and I definitely can't stand here and say, that I agree with all the positions taken by police officials and all the things that they've done.
Thank you, sir.
And anybody else that wanted to answer that
Yes.
question?
Anybody else on the panel who would like to answer that question, please?
Well, I certainly agree with the collaborative agreement with the refresh. I represented until I left to run for judge the Sentinel Police Association, who took a differing view than the FOP as to the police being involved in the collaborative refresh. Police community relations are extremely important to the safety of individuals and to the safety of the community. So I do hope that the FOP comes to the table, stays at the table, and hears the concerns of the community.
Thank you.
I certainly support the work of the collaborative. Thank you.
I do as well. Sorry to, again, a lot of these answers sound like broken record, but I support the collaborative agreement and all that they're doing.
And as well, I support, and not to speak for my colleagues who are up here, but there's a reason that some of us aren't endorsed by the FOP, and I support that.
I absolutely support the work of the collaborative agreement.
Thank you. Other questions from the audience? Go ahead, sir.
This question is for Mr. Coleman. It's my understanding that in the juvenile court, we have, in this county, the highest percentage of black youth that are locked up. What have you done during your tenure to address that and do anything to change the course of what is happening to our children? The reason why I ask that question is this. If there has not been any changes there, what can we hope to see as a result of you going to municipal court?
As a man,
Not man, judge.
as a magistrate, okay, your question started out with what have I done as a magistrate to improve the plight of young black men. As a magistrate, I do dependency, abuse, and neglect cases, so I've never presided over a delinquency case other than young people whose case I have on the dependency docket. I'm determining where custody is going, so if they happen to find themselves in a criminal situation, they go through the process, they'll send it to me so that I can sentence in accordance with the placement plan. But as far as a man in the community, I believe that I'm leading by example. I have a family, 3 children. My son just graduated from Tuskegee University. I'm involved in fraternal organizations. I believe in community service. I'm not absent from the community. I was a product of the Upward Bound program. I've been a lifelong resident of Hamilton County Municipal Court District 2.
Thank you, sir. Next question from the audience.
Thank you guys for coming out tonight. As a judge, people running for office and people running on platforms and running on things that they say that they're going to do for the community, it's so easy to say when you're sitting up there. But when you're faced with opposition, I want to know, what is your level of commitment to what you say you're going to do? Now, people was making fun of Merkley, but I'm going to tell you something. He got up there and said what he meant, and he meant what he said, which is what I can respect. But some of us say what the people want to hear, and then we get up there, we're pushed back and oppressed. How much are you going to be committed to what you say you're going to do in the face of opposition? How far will you go? I saw one who went and lost everything. And I don't care what nobody say, I wasn't on the outside, I was inside looking at it, and I couldn't believe it. So when the pressure comes on you, we can all say it ain't, we know it can, you know it can, you already said it. What are you going to do to stay committed to what you said?
I know it's easy to get up here and talk about these great things that we want to change, but for us, we've been running for a matter of months. We've been fighting for years. We've been fighting for the rights of the accused here in the county for years. And that's behind the scene. That's when nobody's looking. That's when nobody cares. We've been fighting. I've been at the PD's office since 2011. I've been promoted a number of times. I'm the director of the Common Pleas Division. But nobody knew who I was before I started running. I've been fighting. And it's, judge me by my actions. Judge me by, you can go down to the Justice Center right now and ask them who I am, and they know, because they know they can trust me, they know I will fight for them. And it's easy to get up here and say, I'll do this now, but I've been fighting for years. And I will tell you this as well. We have, Carrie mentioned this earlier, we have always been the opposition. We've always gotten opposition from fighting for the accused. And we will continue to do so because this is our nature, to fight against a system that's unfair.
I can tell you that I have been cussed out by a sitting judge, and I still fought her. I have been threatened by a judge who called my boss because he didn't like something I said. I still fought against him. I fight every single day when I go into the courthouse. That is what I do. I will continue to do that. What I say, I mean, and what I mean, I say. I am not going to change. This is who I always have been. This is who I will continue to be. And I encourage you to come down to the courthouse and see me after I am elected. When I am elected, I encourage you to come down because I'll be there every day from when the day starts until when the day ends. I'm not going to leave at 12 o'clock. I'm not going to mistreat people. What I am saying here today will be the same person I will be the day after I am elected.
That's not like fist fights. Are we talking about fist fighting here? Because that sounded serious. Go ahead.
Thank you. To continue what we've heard so far, we've been public defenders. I include them with me because we don't go anywhere alone. Even when we're physically alone, we're always together. And, we've been public defenders, not getting paid really for our work, not really paying off our student loans, not buying fancy cars and houses like our law school classmates are, because we are doing the right thing. And we are fighting literally every single day. Not fist fights. I personally, not fist fights me. But I can see how it would come to that because we bring all of this emotion that you're hearing today. We bring that into the courtroom on behalf of every single one of our clients. And we can stand up here and tell you, I appreciate your question. We could say that all day. But what you can do is you can go down and you can look up who we've represented and ask them. You can go in the jail and look up who my clients are and you ask them. Ask them, how does Carrie work for you? How is it going? And I know what you're going to hear, and I feel confident in what you'll hear. And you hear that same thing when I'm elected, and you come into the courtroom and watch me there.
I think the best testimony that I can give is that this community, this geographic area, this city has trusted my experience in public office through 12 separate elections. Through 12 elections, and I'm still here. I was not endorsed by the FOP, but I was proud to be endorsed by the Sentinel Police Association. Thank you.
I never take the easy way out. I've taken the hard cases. I think in Hamilton County, a badge of honor for taking hard cases is when the Enquirer slanders you. And so I've been proud to have that. But I will say, I always show up. This morning, my opponent got on the radio and basically said that Judge Hunter was her very best friend and blamed me for Judge Hunter being in jail. One of the questions that came was a hard question. And I sat here and I told you the truth. It would have been easy for me not to show up today. It would have been easy for me to make an excuse. Senator Thomas even knows, because I told him yesterday, because I thought I was going to be late, and I found someone to take care of the 3 developmentally disabled clients that I now take care of since my mother passed. And I found a way to get them to where they were going so that I could be here early, and I could be on time. People may not like what I say, what I do, but I'm going to show up, period.
Our next question. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you hadn't answered.
One of the best predictors of future behavior is what has been done in the past. And I'm proud of what I've done. I'm proud of my legacy, proud of the work that I've done in the community. I'm proud of the work that I've done in the legal community. I'm here, and I've opened up the doors and windows so that you can see in, and I challenge you to put me there and then hold me accountable.
Thank you. Our next question comes from someone who is and will always be the Honorable Judge Tracy Marie Hunter.
Thank you very much. I wasn't going to ask any questions tonight, but I feel compelled as the elephant in the room. My question to all of you is candidates and those who are already on the bench. I've heard all of you say we can't say anything because I'm a candidate or because I'm a judge, etc. Although I have heard judges talking about my case. I've heard NATO on the TV going around, and you all know that if you as lawyers hear of an ethical violation, then you have a right or you have a responsibility to report it. But what has happened, obviously, in my case, that hasn't happened. And lawyers, black and white, have stood by and allowed this public lynching of my life and career to go on. And not one attorney has stood up and ethically said that is wrong. But beyond asking or beyond answering the question about the case itself, you still, as far as I know, and again, once a judge, always a judge. I think we heard Bernard say that earlier. But even if you can't answer answer the question specifically about the case because you're not compelled, I do believe that you can respond as to who I am and answer even if you have to say, I can't answer the question, but Carrie, for instance, I can say that I practiced a lot in Judge Hunter's courtroom. You practiced a lot in my courtroom. So even if you can't answer anything about my case, I do believe you could answer the question, what kind of judge was Judge Tracy Hunter? John Coleman. You were the recipient of a scholarship, I believe, that I set up in my brother's name at UC College of Law. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So you cannot maybe talk about the case, but you can attest to the type of person that I am. And so I'm not going to allow judicial candidates or judges to keep not saying my name. There are things that you can do to get around answering the direct question about my case. And I want to challenge each of you and your integrity that you're talking so highly of to answer the type of person. Answer about me as the type of person that I am. But don't ignore me as the elephant in the room. There are ways that you can get around it, just like Norbert Nadeau has gotten around it, and other judges have gotten around it that felt compelled to talk about Judge Tracy Hunter. Say my name.
Say my name.
Our next question comes from an audience member. Go ahead, please.
And that segues into my question. I have heard you all talk about judicial code of conduct, and you've honored that. But we have watched the judicial code of conduct be completely broken in her case.
Right.
We've watched her not be taken, instead of being gone through the disciplinary practices that should have happened for a judge. We watched her be criminally charged. So we have seen that broken. How can you affect the fact that the judicial code of conduct is completely ignored in this county? That's my question. And I would like to direct that to each person, and I would like to hear an answer from each person, please.
I think the judicial code of conduct should apply to everyone, but I don't think that the consequences apply to everyone, period. African American attorneys get disciplined more and more severely than our counterparts, I believe. So I hope I'm answering that question, but I don't agree with judges running around talking about active cases, especially the judge on the case, especially if the case is under appeal, especially when a jury has not been chosen. I think that weighs in on a case, and that is very problematic. So hopefully I answered.
The question was, how would you affect that? How would you make that change? The practices that happen here in this county, and especially if you're going to take the bench, how would you make that change? Because we know that those rules are not followed. They're followed subjectively, depending on who wants to, who doesn't. How would you all personally make that change?
I would make the change by doing what I'm supposed to do. I can't make another judge. As a municipal court judge, I couldn't go make Nadeau do something differently. But I believe that you can talk to your colleagues and that you can speak out. And I have not talked to the judges that were involved in Judge Hunter's case, but I have been very vocal and I have spoken out about it.
I don't think that the case of Judge Hunter did not have to be charged criminally.
I think one of the big things in effectuating change in the system, I agree with what's already been said, that the system is not the same for everybody. And that's what Janaea has said previously about the need to change the administration and electing judges who are the endorsed Democrats to actually be able to make change on a widespread basis. Because the judges you're talking about, the comments, Judge Hunter, that you were making, are almost exclusively made by Republican judges. Is that fair to say?
Right. True.
And that is something that, because they have always been in power, they feel empowered to say whatever they want, even if it violates the ethical code. I did not practice in front of you, but I knew about your case, obviously, and I know, and I would agree with what Judge Yates said, that it is not something that should have been charged criminally, and it is a problem, and it just illustrates how unfair the system is for different people.
Wow. Thank you, sir.
As to your question, I think what everyone has said so far is we are running to bring up the standard of how judges and others in the courthouse act. We are there behaving in accordance with our ethical rules. We're here answering the questions to our best of our ability in accordance with the ethical rules, because that is what we hold in high esteem, is the rules that govern us. So we came out of our jobs to run for these positions against people who have been in these positions for a long time, because we agree with you. Things are happening that shouldn't be happening. And so when we get in those spots and ethical violations don't occur, and people aren't talking about cases anymore, and it's not in the news the way that it is now, it'll be because we came up and we held ourselves to a higher standard.
What I will say is, Judge Hunter, I never practiced in front of you, but I represent children who are bound over into adult court now. And I know that when you were a judge, it didn't happen as much as it's happening now. What I also know is that those children they had to stop shackling those children because of what you did over in juvenile court. So I will acknowledge that, and I will say that, because all of those things are important. And you know, there's a different standard for a white Republican judge than there is for a black Democratic judge. And until you get those judges out of there, those standards are not, it's just not going to change. And I just want you to keep in mind that there's an election on November 5th, 2019. Tell everybody you know. But there is another election next year. 13 seats. Get them out of there.
We're going to let this next question be the last question. And before we ask the last question, I want to remind the community and the coalition that we're going to be selecting the judges that we're going to support as a coalition at the end of this. So please stick around for that discussion after the candidates have finished speaking. And so we'll go ahead and we have one more question from...
And keep in mind, folks, they keep talking about power in terms of controlling the court. Keep in mind, they keep talking about power that controls the court. And there's 14 judges in the municipal court. And the administrative judge is determined by the majority party in that court. There's 8, I believe, Republicans and 6 Democrats. And if we are able to, well, I'll just leave it there.
Thank you, sir.
Judge Hunter, while she was incarcerated, had given us a mandate.
Can't hear you, speak up.
Judge Hunter, while she was incarcerated, did give us a mandate to tear down the system. Okay, and she even made it public in a news cast when she was released that Saturday morning. My question to you all is, are you willing to go to jail? Are you willing to go to jail? And not just have lift the standards, but are you willing to tear down the system? And if you have to go to jail, go to jail. I text the judge and asked her if Carrie had stood before her in her court. And I also text and asked, I also text and ask, could Mrs. Baxton, Mrs. Bratton, I apologize, Mrs. Bratton. Forgive me, please. If she could have what prevented her from offering her services to Judge Hunter after Clyde Bennett left. I wanted to know that. That's what I wanted to know.
Well, I couldn't provide my services because I testified as a defense witness, and so I could not represent Judge Hunter. I have represented Judge Hunter before, and that case was actually dismissed by the prosecutor's office because they kept filing frivolous lawsuits, and they filed a lawsuit that was pending, or a decision was pending, and so was dismissed as moot. So I never shied away from Judge Hunter. I never attempted to hide anything or to cast Judge Hunter in any light that was not appropriate.
That was my only question.
Okay.
What prevented jail to change things?
It depends on what I'm going to jail for. If I'm out marching and I get arrested, yes. I mean, I don't know. The question is so broad, but if I'm standing on principle and it happens, then yes, I'm going to have to. But does anyone want to go to jail? No. I represent people in jail. It is a horrible place. A horrible place where you don't get proper food, you don't get proper clothing, you don't get proper exercise of your mind. So I'll speak for me. No, I don't want to go to jail, but I have dedicated my career to justice. And if I'm marching or if I'm standing up for something that's right and it happens, I'm not going to shy away from it, but I'm not voluntarily signing up to go to the Justice Center.
I asked that because Miss Rogers went. She went voluntarily.
I've always been willing to go to jail for my conscience.
I will actually give you a case specific that I had. I had a client, my investigator went out, got a video that was problematic for my client. The prosecutor did nothing. The case comes around for trial, and the prosecutor says, hey, give me that video that you have that I didn't bother to get to try to use against my client. They filed a motion to compel to try to make me give them the video. I knew, and I had prepared my office, and I told them, I'm willing to go and be held in contempt to not turn over this video because it is the right thing to do, and it is me protecting my client's rights. So I know the Masons and the NAACP panel, there was a pledge that I would spend a night in jail. I would. I was in the jail 2 times today. I was in there at 2 separate times. So it is not something that scares me, and if it comes down to doing the right thing, I will always do the right thing.
There was some comment from the judge about me practicing in front of her, and that is true. When I was in the juvenile division of the public defender's office, I represented too many kids in front of Judge Hunter on the judge heard bindovers. So serious offenses, offenses with guns, offenses with alleged violence, serious violence. And me and others from my office went into the courtroom seeking justice on behalf of those kids. And like John said, being a defense attorney, and especially being a public defender, means that you are walking into that courtroom, no matter who the judge is, on behalf of that client and on behalf of the Constitution, and you are going to do what you have to do to protect both. And if that means that someone who disagrees with you is going to hold you in contempt, which is a way to go to jail, then yes, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to back down.
I represent mostly individuals who have been charged with felonies. So I spend an average of 15 hours a week in the Justice Center. I spend a lot of time in the Justice Center because that's where my clients are. That's where I go to talk to them. It is an absolutely horrendously awful place. I will not voluntarily go to jail. However, I do stand on my principles. I will always do what is right. I've been threatened to be held in contempt multiple times, and I did not back down. I did not run out. I did not quit. I kept going. I kept fighting, and that is who I am. So If need be, I will, but am I going to volunteer? I know what's going on in that jail. No, I'm not going to voluntarily go. But if I have to go, I will.
I can tell you that I have been held in contempt. It didn't result in a jail sentence. If I had paid the fine, then I was going to be subjected to jail. And I asked, should I do it? I asked another attorney, should I do this? And he said, no, you shouldn't do it. You should go ahead and pay the fine, not go to jail. But I absolutely considered it, and I wasn't afraid to go to jail. And at the last, or one of the past judicial forums hosted by the NAACP and the Masons, I believe I was the only other candidate, along with Mr. Kennedy, who signed up to go to jail, just because the challenge was go and see what it's like, because the loss of liberty is such a significant thing.
Thank you, sir. So we have a couple of things we want to do before we dismiss the judge candidates. Are there any other candidates for office in the room right now? Okay, so she had to leave. Okay, I just want to mention to the community and the coalition that Alicia Reese was here. She is a candidate for commissioner, county commissioner, Hamilton County Commissioner. She was here. And then I just want to say thank you to these judicial candidates. You all did an awesome job answering the tough questions. We appreciate each and every one of you who came out today. Thank you so much. Can we stand and say thank you to these judicial candidates? So that's all we have for the panel tonight. Thanks again for being here. For those of you who are here from the community, we would like to take up a donation for Judge Tracy Hunter because unlike some of the candidates sitting there, Judge Hunter has been ordered that if she does not cover her court costs, that she will go to jail, or to prison, I'm sorry, for 18 months. So we want to make sure we have a few people with baskets throughout the room. They're going to be passing the baskets around in order to take up a donation for Judge Hunter. We want to do that, and after we take up the donation, we're going to reconvene back here, and we're going to discuss the candidates forum tonight and the candidates, and have each of you vote on which candidates we want to support, and we will discuss the ways in which we can support those candidates. But I want you to keep in mind the candidates who were here today, who showed up. We want to keep that in mind. All right, thank you. So the baskets are going around. Please make a donation towards Judge Hunter's court costs.
Turn this off.
And I also want to say thank you to our wonderful panelists up here. Can we give the panel a round of applause? Some awesome panelists. Can we also say thank you to the camera guy over here, making sure that everything is on camera. Can we turn it around to the audience cameraman? Thanks again for everybody being here. We're going to take up the collection, and then we're going to reconvene up here in about 5 minutes, so you can shake the hands of the candidates. You got 5 minutes to shake hands, hug, snuggle with the candidates, or whatever you want to do. If you don't want them snuggling you, candidates, just push them away. Thank you. People with the baskets, if we can make sure we get the folks in the back, give them an opportunity to donate.
I'm so. Well, I'm not going to wait.
I do want to make a comment, a couple of announcements, a comment as well. Some of the people who are part of the coalition are 501c3s, nonprofit organizations, and they are not able to endorse. The NAACP is one of them. There are others, and our process should not be misconstrued as something that the NAACP is doing in terms of endorsing. The nonprofit organizations are not endorsing candidates. The coalition is not a organized nonprofit organization, so to speak. We are members of the community. We have no leadership structure. The community members are the leaders of this organized collective, I should say. So that's one thing. The other thing is we are having a celebrity basketball benefit game on November 23rd, 2019. For those people who are here from the community, that's going to take place at Hearst Rec Center from 2 to 4 p.m. and it will be Team Lincoln Ware against Team Emmanuel Livingston from 2 to 4 at the Hearst Recreation Center on Reading Road. We are also supporting the Cincinnati Black Theater Company presentation. Is Don Sherman here? Do you have the other flyer for that event? Oh, it's on the back. I'm sorry. Black Nativity, the musical on December 14th at 2 p.m. The basketball game is $10. The show is $25 for December 14th at 2 o'clock p.m. So we're also going to be supporting that. The proceeds from both the basketball game, the celebrity basketball game, as well as the proceeds from Black Nativity will go towards Judge Tracy Hunter's court costs and defense fund. Thank you.